This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero! A superhero! Breakthrough! It's taken a while, but it's been worth the wait.
To mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the spoken word. We are the ones who keep the planet spinning. And yes, one day we will rule the world.
Hey guys, I'm Sai. Welcome to H Podcast Nation for this special one-off live show. It's very, very exciting. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as always. If you prefer your podcast in audio form, then you can get this along with all the other series and shows that we do at the Sports Social Podcast Network. And also, of course, we're supporting this charity Super 6 Prediction League this year, raising money for two great charities. We've got a Maggie Centre and Mind. And as a special, because of the guest, the return of the man himself, we're going to do a little Super 6 update, head-to-head between myself and Andy. So, Andy, I'm going to bring you in quickly before I officially introduce you. And I'm going to ask you just to guess these questions. Who has had the most head-to-head wins between me and you over the 50 rounds so far?
I'm going to go me.
Oh, well, I've had 19 and you have had 19. Which one of us has missed the most rounds?
Me.
Yeah, you've missed 11. I've missed 5. Who has scored double figures the most?
I'll go you. I don't think I have. I think I've just been little and often.
So you have scored double figures 10 times, and I have only got into double figures 5 times.
Ooh.
Wow. And for the deciding point, who has come top of the celebrity table most often, me or you?
I'm going to go me only because I think I've got more points than you. So I'm just law of averages. I'm going to go me.
So I've come top 4 times. You've come top 8 times, which means Andy Campbell wins the top trump Super 6 for the update for today. However, I've cut the difference to 17 points now. I'm coming for you fast.
Yeah, I'll let myself down. I'll let myself down quite badly when I miss. I miss far too many, and then I understand like really early that I've done it. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare.
You realise at like 3:05.
Yeah, it's the guilt. It's the guilt. Will makes you feel really guilty as well, so I like it. Yeah. I like it. Keep doing it, Will. Keep doing it.
He's good at that. So, as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, the return, ex-Cardiff City and Middlesbrough striker, Middlesbrough women's manager, and of course, OG member of the Ace Nation Army, former co-host, Mr. Andy Campbell. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. It's great to be back. I'm just looking at all the comments on my screen already. Some familiar faces. Yeah, so listen, it's great to be back. Obviously, my path's gone down a different route, and I'm extremely busy. But no, it's great to be back. I've left it probably far too long. But no, it's great to be back. I'm really looking forward to it and having a good conversation with you and answering some questions which some of the viewers have as well. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I got to make an apology straight away because I got carried away with myself, and I did the Super 6 before I introduced you, and I didn't introduce you as David Jones's favourite son. Shocking. Out of practice, see, mate, out of practice. Yeah. But back together again, my friend. So we're going to catch up with like what you've been up to and stuff like that. But I briefly, and I do want it to be fairly brief, I want to talk about the South Wales derby very quickly, because Cardiff, in my opinion, was one of the worst performances in recent times by Cardiff City. However, Cardiff have got a habit in the South Wales derby of putting in these types of performances. And I wanted to ask you, like, in your career as a player, did you suffer like any really like heavy defeats where the team just hasn't turned up, and it's kind of one of them?
Listen, I think pressure does different things to different people, especially in big games, big scenarios, big moments, and I just think sometimes everyone was making a huge thing about this, that Cardiff or Swansea hadn't won a double-headed for 100 years in the history of the game. And listen, it had to happen. It had to happen one day, and it was going to happen for somebody. And for me, let them enjoy the moment. Cardiff didn't turn up. From minute 1 to minute 95, they just didn't turn up. They didn't have enough shots on target, didn't win any battles. It was quite a lackluster, embarrassing performance. But then you go and follow it up at the weekend at Reading, which for me is probably a harder game with a team who's fighting against relegation. They go and turn up and pull in a very strong performance and getting a victory. And I just think it's Cardiff City all over. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, and I've said this all along, especially the season that we've got promoted, that people would say I'd rather beat Swansea once or twice and not get promoted. For me, the bigger picture is the 46 games. Your 44 other league games are just as important as those two. Yes, bragging rights. Yes, there's history between the football clubs, but your bigger picture is Cardiff City getting promoted out of that division into the Premier League, and you know what I mean. Cardiff, for me, they've still got the better squad of players. They're a progressive club, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. The manager's put himself under a horrific amount of pressure because of it, and has handled it really well this week. I think he's handled himself and his tactics and his team selection and his moving forward really well, but. He still put himself under a massive amount of pressure with what happened in the derby game, and I think sometimes when you win the first game, the second game is a free one. So Swansea had nothing to lose. If they'd lost the game or drawn the game, it wouldn't have mattered. But for them, it was a free one. They went into it like it had no pressure, and they got the result. And I think that moving forward for Cardiff, they need to do the same next time around. That give everything in the first game, and then in the second game, you're under no illusions that there's no pressure. If you win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. Then you can just enjoy the game, really, and enjoy the occasion, because it's a huge game, a huge occasion. And I don't think there's enough probably Cardiff City players, local players, who really know what it means to play and to want to win that game.
Yeah, and I think one thing Swansea have done is they've followed it up with 3 cracking results. So they've made it matter, because they were in not very good form, and they've not just had the good, they haven't just upped their performance against Cardiff and then lost the following 3, which kind of takes the edge off it. They've gone and beaten a couple of really good sides and had some good performances. Cardiff were better the other day, but I mean, for me, it's just, I don't know, Cardiff have had a habit of not turning up in the South Wales derbies. For the manager, I thought the comments immediately after the game didn't help him. They were very, very Dave Jones-esque in terms of how he used to talk about the derby, and it used to upset the fans, because the fans care. The fans want to win that football match more than any other football match. And I think to not turn up and then to try and kind of shrug it off as, it's only 3 points, does upset fans more. But on the other hand, it is only 3 points, and you've got that side of it. What about you as a player, mate? Did you ever get a proper tune-in, as it were?
Oh yeah, listen, we've been beaten at home for Middlesbrough 6-7-1, and it's not nice. You probably change your plans on an evening that you were planning on doing something else, and you don't do it instead. But listen, it's knowing the importance of a game. Obviously being a Middlesbrough player and a Middlesbrough fan, I knew the importance of a Sunderland derby, a Newcastle derby, a Leeds United game. So I knew the importance of those kind of games, and I knew what it meant to the fans in the area. So I would I wouldn't say I'd put any more effort in because I think that's disrespectful. You know what I mean? But I knew the importance of the game, and I would remind people, and my focus would be on that game instead of thinking, yes, it's just 3 points. It is just 3 points. I understand that comment, but at the same time, it's a big game for the people. And I remember watching games as a supporter. It meant more than that. When you're watching the game, when you're lost, when it makes you upset, it feels like more than 3 points. But I think when you get older and when you're looking at the bigger picture is 3 points. But maybe those kind of comments when they come out in a press conference straight after, just make you feel a little bit let down that people don't seem to think that you care, which is unfair. I know one of the comments that Boro fans saying that Arsenal used to do it to us all the time, and I always knew it was going to be a big game and a hard game, but they came to our place and they beat us 6-1 week. This following season they beat us 7, and there's no way to stop it. And I couldn't understand how you did stop it. You know, I think you have the mockers over certain clubs. I know Cardiff City have probably done it against West Ham. I think they've got a really good record against a team like West Ham, but there's something against Swansea.
Peterborough.
Yeah, but there's just something against Swansea that just can't get over that line, and I don't know what it is. But you know what I mean? Is it a mentality thing? Is it an effort thing? Is it a quality thing? Is it a nerves thing? Is it focusing on the game too much for too long? You know what I mean? That it is just a game, but after the game you can say whatever you want. But it's a different focus. You know that the manager. If Cardiff got promoted this year, it would be a distant memory. But they're not going to get promoted, so it's going to look like a poor season. And if they beat Swansea once or twice, then you could probably paper over the cracks a little bit.
Yeah.
But
I think. So very last thing on Cardiff for the second. I said, I think the other day, it might have been to Rhodri, that I think one of the problems that Cardiff have got as a football club is there's a bit of a disjointedness about what the ambition is. Like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to steady the finances? Are we trying to get back to the Premier League? Are we trying to just avoid relegation in the Championship? Are we trying to build up for youth? There's kind of like a bit of a free-for-all and everything. There seems like a few different people are pulling in different directions, and I think they need to establish what they're doing.
At the minute, Si, I think it's a little bit like mistaken identity. That there's rumours that there's a takeover going to happen. Well, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Is the owners coming out and saying I'm not selling? And that would probably relay some fears from supporters, players, the people who work there, if they are looking to sell, which I probably believe they are, because I think they wanted to jump out for quite a while. Sell it and move on and let the club move forward, because this is a perfect time now to sell a football club. So they can build for the summer. They can have a little go next season. Whereas teams and clubs seem to do it at such a long time, and it gives them no time to buy players in the January window. It gives them no time to offer new contracts. It gives them no opportunity to move the football club forward. And fans just want a little bit of trust and transparency, and so do players. And you know what I mean? It's dog eat dog, the Championship. It's the toughest league. It's the best league, but it's a very tough league. And for me, I just want someone to come out from the football club and just say we're staying or we're leaving, and the club's up for sale, because then at least you'd know where everyone stands.
Yeah, spot on. Seeing as we used to do a Championship show together, mate, every Friday, I'm going to start crying now. So, I want to talk a little bit about the Championship, because there's so much to talk about going on in there. One team which I really want to talk about before we get to Middlesbrough is Luton Town. How many times were we saying, God, they're doing so well, when they were just avoiding relegation? Then they had like a top 12 finish, I think. And we were like, that's amazing for a small ground, small club. Nathan Jones went to Stoke, took a gamble, didn't work out, went back to Luton. And, it's going to be close. It's so tight up there. But, they've got a very good chance of being in the playoffs. How good a job is that for Nathan Jones to get, if he gets them into the playoffs?
I think if he gets Luton Town in the playoffs, in the top 6, he's got to be manager of the year. I look at the game yesterday.
Quickly, mate. Let me put this to you then. If Luton Town get to the playoffs, so they finish top 6, but Wayne Rooney keeps Derby up, who gets manager of the year?
I still probably think Nathan Jones, with budget and with size of the football club, size of the followings, just the whole general things. I think it's also the amount of points that the club's accumulated. and will accumulate. Obviously, they play Huddersfield tonight, which is a very difficult game. If they're going to stay in the playoffs, they probably have to get a result tonight. I know Middlesbrough lost at the weekend. Sheffield United drew. Fulham lost. Everyone's beating everybody, and it's that time of the year that if you can have a little bit of a run, you can guarantee yourself an amazing opportunity. You know that for me, the probably only informed side within the playoff area. Top two is Nottingham Forest. They're absolutely flying at the minute with some good performances, some good players, good squad, loads of confidence. But for me, he's done an immense job. But the next question is, if he doesn't go up, if he doesn't get in the playoffs, will a bigger club try and attract him again, and he gets another opportunity to fly his wings somewhere else, because he's achieving quite a lot with probably a shoestring budget with lesser players, and what comes with bigger players is bigger egos, more pressure, more expectations, and it just becomes a different animal altogether if he decides to leave.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what they do. Like Nathan Jones doing a tremendous job, and let's not forget, like Wales just said there, they lost their top goal scorer at the end of last season to Cardiff. Look, he hasn't done very well for Cardiff, but I mean, for them, how they played their game for the last couple of seasons was very much based around Collins being up front. But maybe him leaving has meant that they've changed their style of play a little bit, which has benefited them. So, I mean, there's two sides to it. It's so tight up there, apart from Fulham, obviously, running away with it. You've got Forest have jumped right up to third. And I think someone just said, Boro fans there, said he thinks Nottingham Forest will actually finish second. And as someone who, I haven't got like a team up there myself, I would love to see Nottingham Forest and Luton Town in the Premier League again. However, because of people like yourself, I also would like Boro to sneak in there. What would you make of Boro's season? Obviously, managerial changes and whatnot over the last couple of years, but they've still managed to really kind of progress with each season somehow.
Yeah, I think the season overall, it's been a success. I think the change of manager came at probably the right time, but could have been done a little bit earlier. Which would have given the new manager a little bit more of an opportunity to look at other players, bring in earlier targets potentially. But listen, he's doing a great job, regardless of what happened at the weekend, which was a poor performance, an awful goal to give away, and a bad result against Hull City. But listen, you can't win every game, and it is a Middlesbrough type of performance, which you expect them to win. They lose against a lesser side, and then all the teams in and around you probably drop points as well. So it was really a Middlesbrough type of weekend, which is just the norm. I think it's same as Cardiff City, that your expectations are up there and all of a sudden you get let down. But Chris has done an amazing job. He's brought in some very good players, some probably better standard than I thought he was probably going to bring in. A lot of loan players. For me, if Middlesbrough are going to get promoted, they need a proper goal scorer, and if it's Balogun, if it's Connolly, because those two for me, the Premier League footballers. So, you know what I mean? If they're going to get promoted, those two have to, probably one of them go and get 10 goals for the rest of the season, and they'll have an opportunity, because the teams who win these games at the minute are teams who are scoring goals. Nottingham Forest scoring goals, Coventry City scoring goals, Luton scoring goals. So, you know what I mean? The teams in form are the teams who score goals.
Yeah, the loan thing's really interesting to me. Like Cardiff have got several players on loan, and the loan players are a massive part of the first 11, or the best first 11. Middlesbrough the same. There's a few other clubs with, several players on loan. And I think outside, even Fulham have got a couple, but, Fulham have also got a nucleus of their own players. And you just, season to season, if you don't go up in the playoffs or automatically, you could lose those loan players. They might not be available the season after, or they may go to a different football club, in the Premier League or wherever. And I think, I don't know where I stand on it with loan players, because Cardiff are very much basing their team at the moment on young talent, and you've got a good basis of academy players coming through, but then they're also bringing in young loan players from Man City and teams like this, which those players have made a massive difference to the quality of the football. But then at the end of the season, you just don't know if they're going to be available, which means you're not only having to replace the players such as, say, Bakuna or whoever who are out of contract or not deemed good enough anymore. You've also got to replace the loan players, and I don't know if it does more harm than good in the long term.
I think that's why a recruitment position in a football club is a massive area at the minute, because every year there's an influx of players coming in and an influx of players going out, because every year there's another 16-year-olds group of players coming through a football club, which then pushes everybody up. Some players have got to filter out, and some players have got to filter back in, and it's the Man Cities, the Liverpools, the Man Uniteds, the Chelseas. These kind of clubs are the ones who are benefiting, because their younger players are getting opportunities all across the EFL, which is great. But it's clubs like Cardiff, Middlesbrough, Championship, League 1, League 2. They're guinea pigs, really, to see if those players are good enough. And if they're good enough, they'll get sent back to the clubs and do really well. But if they're not good enough, it's those kind of clubs who suffer. And sometimes that can be seen as unfair, because clubs and managers, Steve Morrison, for example, doesn't have probably that much time on his hands to risk a younger player, whereas he can guarantee something from an experienced player. But experienced players cost more money. They want longer contracts, because potentially a loan player, you might not have to pay the wages if you get a decent enough deal from the club that they're at, which I'm not sure I agree with. I think if you get a loan player, you should have to pay their wages, because then it becomes fair. It's not a deal with a friend or an ex-club. I think this financial fair play, there's ways around different rules, which it's just a mess, and it makes a mockery of the whole thing, and puts clubs in an unnecessary position, a little bit like Derby. But listen, it's good because it makes the Championship stronger with better players. But like you say, you get a player coming in the Championship one season, and the next season he could be back in the Premier League, and it leaves a massive hole in that football club, because if you do well, you've then got to replace him with like for like. And how do you replace a player from the Premier League of a top player from that caliber? It just doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, you took me back to when Bellamy first signed for Cardiff on loan. Then, like, the other Championship clubs were not happy with it because Cardiff weren't paying all his wages. And the season before, he'd been tearing it up for Man City. So it wasn't like he was, that first season, I mean, when he came to Cardiff on loan, he wasn't, in the last year of his career. And he was kind of still at the peak of his powers, albeit, it lost a yard of pace. And I mean, if Wales get to the World Cup, I think there's a pretty good chance that Gareth Bale signs for Cardiff for 6 months, from sort of to the summer through to the World Cup, just to keep fit for the World Cup. And I don't know where I stand with that, because one, I think if he's going to sign for Cardiff, he should give him a full season. But then also, he's only signing because he wants to play in the World Cup. So I don't know where I stand on that. And then, of course, you'll have the other teams will be asking questions about how Cardiff can't afford to, sign players, but they can afford to pay Gareth Bale's wages. But obviously, he's out of contract, so he can kind of accept whatever pay he wants, can't he? I suppose.
It makes a mockery of it, Si. It probably makes a mockery of it, because as a fan, I look at his situation at the minute at Real Madrid. He's for whatever reason he's not playing. If that's personal,
yesterday, didn't he, when he came on?
Yeah, if that's his decision, the club's decision. Gareth's shown that he doesn't need to play regular football to still be match fit and sharp, because he can keep himself fit. So if he signs for Cardiff City, will the City fans expect him to play week in, week out, or will he just be able to tick himself over, train, keep sharp, keep fit for when the big games in his eyes are the Wales games, the World Cup games, because the whole objective is to play in the World Cup. So he's got to be at peak fitness for the World Cup. If that means he doesn't pick an injury up, then why would he risk it? It's such a tough one, because I wasn't lucky enough to play for my country. I certainly wasn't lucky enough to play in the World Cup. So I couldn't put myself in that pedestal where I need to get fit for that kind of moment, but I can't risk anything for that moment to not to happen. It's such a moment that he wants to happen in his life, that why would he risk anything for it not to happen?
But like Martin Jones has made a great point. Like, even with his injury problems and his fitness problems and his lack of football in recent years, Gareth Bale is miles above the level of Cardiff City. If he was going to sign for someone who, is still at his sort of level, he would still be in the Premier League at the very least. And like it does make a bit of a mockery of it. But on the other hand, if his choice is sign for Cardiff for 6 months, if Wales get in the, do get to the World Cup, so he needs to stay fit for that in the November or whatever it is, or kind of retire or semi-retire, then I would rather him play for Cardiff for 6 months, because I still think Gareth Bale's got a lot to offer. And I certainly think he's got a lot to offer for Wales if they were to get to the World Cup. He showed that just in the Austria game the other day. He was phenomenal. But I can understand the frustration from other football clubs. And even me as a Cardiff fan, as much as I would love to see Gareth Bale in a Cardiff City shirt, it's a bit like, if he's going to play, then yeah, okay, I can see the benefit of it. If he's going to play once every 6 weeks, I don't know. But the Welshman in me says, nah, just let him train there, keep him fit, wrap him in cotton wool, and make sure he's good for November if we get there. So
it's a tough one. It's a tough one,
isn't it? Stoke, mate, the still underachieving. Eventually, they're going to get rid of those players and they'll start doing something, because those players now, how many times have they failed? Stoke, every year we did our championship preview show, I would say, I think this is the year for Stoke. Those players are just too good. They're Premier League players. They're going to go, and they never even come close. So I've given up on Stoke in terms of that. I think those players have got to accept that they haven't been good enough since they got relegated.
See, we underachievers, and for me, I think when you get relegated from the Premier League and you've got to cut your cloth accordingly, but you're still paying Premier League wages and you've still got Premier League players within your squad. It makes it difficult because probably the biggest name player in that team is Joe Allen, and I look at his effort second to none. I look at some other players, and I think they've let themselves down massively, and which just shows the problem that they've got. The problem that they've got is players wanted to go back to the Premier League, but weren't good enough to play in the Premier League because they got relegated out of it. And other players coming through. There's teams getting promoted. There's other people, better players around happening. So it's a really difficult one. But yeah, massively. Is that football club being run the best that it could be? Potentially not. They've got a lot of money at that football club. They're owned by the people who run Bet365, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
and
they got a lot of money.
So they've got a lot of money. So why, in my opinion, if I was a Stoke fan, I'd be questioning why they aren't splashing the cash, bringing in some real marquee signings, a proper manager who can attract those marquee signings, and then move on from there. But at the minute, it's a difficult one because I like the manager. I think he's really good. I think he had a really good time at Northern Ireland. But can he attract the players that Stoke need to get out that division? That's probably the question that people will be asking.
Yeah, there's a few clubs, West Brom as well. Just not doing what they should be with the squads they've got. There's a few, I include Cardiff in that. I include Swansea in that. Preston. There's a few teams down there who should be doing better. But the Championship is so difficult and so tight that I almost feel like sometimes maybe us as fans are too harsh on those players. And it's not that they're underachieving. It's actually just that the league is so well matched that it's just difficult to really run away with it, or to get a good run of games going, because you can smash someone 4-1 one week, and then on Tuesday you can lose 3-0 to the team 3 places below you. It's just insanity.
And I think that's the joy of the Championship, because I think you can go into a game and you've got to be well up for it. I look at the Premier League, and the top 6 does look after itself, which is good. It makes it a strong division. But the Championship, anybody can beat anybody. Fulham getting beat yesterday at home by Coventry 3-1. Middlesbrough getting beat by Hull at the weekend. Bournemouth have stuttered massively over the last few weeks, and they've got a top squad. Forest, who started slow, probably a hangover from the last 2 years, but then look at them, they're now accelerating at such a right time, and if they can carry it on, potentially they might get the second place, and if they get into the Premier League, they could be massive again. And it'd be great to see, because all these football clubs have got great histories, but you've got to earn that right and earn that history back, because nobody's going to give it to you, especially in the Championship. Nobody gives you anything at the minute.
Spot on, mate. So I'm going to come to some of the questions from the live chat in a minute. But I want to talk about let's talk about your job, which you left me for. How dare you? So yeah, you abandoned me and all our people to take over your hometown club's ladies team, which is understandable, I guess. But what was it like, first of all, to start with, like going in there to your hometown club? And we know, we've heard you speak passionately about women's and girls football over the last couple of years anyway. But to go in there as a manager of your hometown club's ladies team had to be special, but nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, first and foremost, to wear that badge on a daily basis is something that nobody can ever take away. So it's such a proud moment. Training, games, it's to wear that red shirt is something that, however old, however tired I get, I wear it with such pride and give it my all every time I turn up. It was very different. I can remember my first meeting, being introduced by the chairman to the group, and it was very different, very awkward. I'd probably say the first one, a little bit uncomfortable. Got a lot of questions asked thrown at me.
Who are you?
A little bit. Basically, yeah, it was. But listen, I love football. I've got a passion for football. Football's no different, men or women. It's played 11v11. It's played on the same size pitch, same size goals. You've got 3 officials stood on the side. Not great men and women, by the way. They're all the same. I found that out to me for my good and for my bad, I think, this season. But no, listen, I've got a passion for women's football. I think it's on the up. We've got a very young group, which people tell me is a good thing and a bad thing. People tell me that the only thing we're lacking is experience, but then tell me that on another hand, how do you gain experience? You gain experience by playing games. So I'm doing that. I'm giving them that opportunity to play games, and I know I've got some absolute superstars within my group, and I know that some of them will play a lot higher. If that's with us, great. If it's not, and they progress on to WSL, then I'll be a super proud man, and we'll help them and push them as long as they need my help, because you can't stand in anybody's way. Nobody ever stood in my way as a player. People give me some really good advice and help me for where I needed to be and where I wanted to go, and I'll do exactly the same. We've had some. It's been a tough season. I've got a lot more grey hairs. I've got less hair. It's been stressful at times, but enjoyable. Standing on the sideline can be a very lonely place. Sitting on the bus for 5 hours after a game, after a heavy defeat, can be a very lonely time. You probably beat yourself up a little bit. Watching the games again, you can overthink things. You can beat yourself up a lot. But it's nice, and that is Sarah Stone, our physio. Her daughter Amira comes to all our games and is inspired by our captain and our goalkeeper Rosie Todd. And listen, if it inspires girls to progress on and play football, play with boys, play with girls, then we've done our job right, and we've helped more people progress through. Because I've heard comments this season of, it doesn't matter, it's only girls football. It absolutely infuriates me. It don't get too hyped up about it. It's only girls. It's absolutely disgusting. You know what I mean? There's everybody wants you to fail. I found that out very quickly. Not everybody, but quite a lot of people want you to fail. The chairman decided to bring me in, which I'm obviously very pleased about and very proud to do what I'm doing. But you know what I mean? Attack me, do what you want to do, but do what you want to do to me. But support the team, support the girls, because the girls need your support. I don't need people's support. I've got and I've learned over the course of my public career to be quite tough and have rhino skin, but it does still get to you. Things get to you, and you need good people around you, which I've got. I've probably got the best chairman around who rings me quite a lot every day. Just to check on me, make sure I'm all right. Either win, lose or draw. But it can be a lonely place and a tough place, but something that I would never change and I would never turn my back on, because I think this group and the club has got an opportunity to progress through to emulate what other teams are doing. I don't believe at the minute things are even at all. I think a lot of clubs who've got that link with their men's team are in such a better position than we are currently. Hopefully that will change very quickly to give us a chance to progress on. But we'll just keep going the way we're doing it. Hopefully we've got 3 games left this season. We've got a mountain to climb, but one that I'm still confident will stay up. I'm not going to say how many points we need. I've said that in front of the girls in the changing room yesterday, so they know exactly what we need to stay up. I'm not going to come on here and say it in front of everybody, because it could backfire very quickly and we could still go down if we get that amount of numbers. But listen, it is what it is. I will give it my all to the end of the season, and then we build again and go again. If that's in the league we're in, brilliant. If we get relegated and the worst comes to the worst, when we build and we go again. And there'll be no one more upset than me, but there'll be nobody more determined after about an hour's worth of going for a walk and kicking a few dogs around, and my own, by the way, and then starting again, because I want to turn this round and get it right.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think, so a bit of a 2-part question, really. I was because I was thinking about this earlier. Why, or who would make a decision if there was like a blanket decision to come down where the men's football clubs and the women's football club have to be linked together? So Boro Ladies and men, Man United, whoever it may be in UK football, if you've got a women's team, it's got to be linked with the men's club, because I feel like straight away that gives those clubs who have got that link an advantage. Then you've got some teams are full-time, some teams are not. Gives you a massive advantage, obviously, both on and off the pitch. Like, is there any way where that you see that coming down as like a blanket decision in the future, or is there any way that it's possible? I'm not exactly sure how it works.
If that's got to come, it's got to come from the FA, and I'm not sure how it would work. Because listen, it's not, and I'm not talking about a financial agreement. I'm just talking about a link which would maybe inspire more people to jump on board and get involved, because
support the teams.
Yeah, I look at the power the Liverpool crest has. I look at the power the Cardiff City crest has. I look at the power that the Middlesbrough Football Club crest has. And no disrespect to the Middlesbrough women crest, but it has more power than ours currently. You know, so I think the more power would help. Surely it would attract more people. It would attack and aim at different levels of people, and that's all. That's all probably I'm looking for. I'm looking to aim it at more people, and you know what I mean. I think with the major tournaments coming up with the women, and I look at the Champions League and the standard of that. I watched Barcelona against Real Madrid, 98,000 people. I watched the day after. I watched Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern Munich in Paris's ground, 40,000 odd people. The standard was absolutely unbelievable. The atmosphere was just amazing. And this shouldn't be just a one-off in the Champions League. It should be the WSL in the Premier League have allowed some of the clubs to play at their stadiums, which is great. Man United had a big attendance. I know Wolves in our league are playing on Wednesday night against Brighouse at Molineux. I know Leeds United in a division below us played yesterday at Ellen Road and won 6-0. And all these things that bring football clubs together, they bring fans into the stadiums, and I think it would be a great opportunity for my girls to be able to play at a men's stadium on a big pitch with the stadium around it. Because I just think it's an opportunity that some may never ever get to do ever again, and what an opportunity for those kind of players to do it. And you know what I mean, I was very fortunate in my career that I played first team games, I played reserve games, and everything was at those kind of stadiums, and it was great. But you just learn so much from it, and then you want more of it. When you get the taste for it, you want more, and that's what I want from these young players. I want my young players to get a taste for something, get a taste for winning, want more of it, get a taste for winning a couple of games, want to get a taste for getting promoted, get a taste for playing for the country. You know, we've got players who are within the national setup, which then brings its own problems because they get recognised by teams in the WSL, teams in the Championship, and we lose them for free because we're classed as semi-professional. So it leaves a bit of a bitter taste. But I would never stand in someone's way to stop them coming. You know, we had Abby Towers signed for Sunderland, we had Alicia Body signed for Leicester City. And good luck to these girls. You know, they deserve an opportunity and play at the highest level because that's where they need to be to progress their football careers. But when those girls leave our group and our squad, it leaves a massive hole.
Yeah. What type of manager are you? Did you have you had to get the hairdryer out? No pun intended.
Once we played Hull City at home, and I wasn't impressed with what I saw, and I told them at half time. Got a reaction second half, but listen, if you do that every week, it's just white noise, and yeah, I think referees are more hearing my voice more than anybody. Listen, we got beat heavily yesterday, and there's no point me coming in the changing room after a game and telling them that it wasn't good enough. The result says it for itself. I wasn't good enough. The players weren't good enough. They were just too good for us on the day, and it's just football. It's one of those things that, you know what I mean. We got to make sure it doesn't happen next Sunday in a game that we need to win, and the following Sunday in a game that we need to win. We just need to make sure it doesn't happen again, and we just need to learn very quickly. But listen, I've got a very honest group of players who will turn up on training tomorrow, give everything that they've got, and then we'll build for Sunday because that's their mentality. I've told them that we don't turn up on Tuesday feeling sorry for ourselves. We turn up with a smile on our face. That includes me. You know what I mean? I've had last night to think about it. I've had today to think about it, and then tomorrow's another day. Today's another day, and it was nice to go to bed last night and wake up today and not probably think about the game as much. That, you know what I mean? Something that I can't change the past. I can, you know what I mean? I can do something about the future and make sure it won't happen again next weekend.
Yeah, I can't start on referees, mate. We had a referee for my boys' team on Saturday, which he just spoiled.
I've seen the comment, yeah. Well,
he was the coach of the other team. He was, and just was awful. And he spoiled the game. He gave them a dodgy penalty, like 5 minutes in. Gave our team nothing, denied blatant penalty, and it just ruined the whole game because all the kids got really upset on our side because we were by far the better team. We battered their goal, but the ref just ruined it. And it's just like, you're an adult spoiling it for 13-year-olds because you're so desperate to win. And it just, Have you argued with any refs, Andy? Have you been booked by any refs? Sent off by any refs yet?
I think I've got a couple of yellow cards. I don't know what that means. But I had a conversation with one yesterday during the game. He had a conversation with me. But listen, that's because I care. It's because I believe that certain things aren't going in and happening which should have been happening. But that's just my opinion. Listen, we're all allowed our opinion, but we don't need to be yelled at. We don't need to be shouted at as well. I get there's a way to do it, but sometimes your emotions get the better of you. They certainly do for me at times, and that's just because I care. And my attitude towards my team won't change, and I'll be on the sidelines on Sunday giving it my all for them, and hopefully we can push on for victory. Because listen, I know how dedicated women are in the game, and that's probably one thing that I've noticed, the difference between men and women in semi-professional football, because I'll class us as semi-professional at the minute, that how dedicated they are. You know what I mean? On a Sunday, we can be out the house at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we won't return back home till 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, if not midnight, and that's the full day. Girls don't get paid a penny, which just, it's absolutely unbelievable what they give up for the football club, for themselves, to aspire to be better than what they are. It's absolutely brilliant, and I can't fault them enough. And that's why I want them to achieve something this year. And when I say achieve something, and I said to them yesterday, if we stay up, they will have the best party ever when they stay up this year, because I believe it's still going to happen. And they'll enjoy themselves just as much as they would if they got promoted, because it'll be an amazing achievement. Right,
mate, we're going to have some questions for you. There's been a few throughout. GD Parry asked earlier, was that Bernie Slaven's girl who played for the team yesterday, I think was the question.
No. No, it wasn't. No, I've got we've got a couple of ex-Middlesbrough players. We've got Anthony Ormerod's daughter, Katie, in our group. Very good footballer. She's got the real potential. She's only really young. It's just finding that time to stick her in full time, because it's like that chicken and egg. It's do you put somebody in a little bit too young and ruin them a little bit, or do you bring them in, put them back in, and make sure that time's right. My daughter made a debut yesterday for the reserves, which is great. Obviously, I didn't get to see it because I had my game, but still nice to hear good comments about how well she did, and they won the game as well. So and not a great day for our team, but it was always nice to see young players progressing their careers as well.
Indeed, mate. Sorry, I'm just trying to find that other question. I think it was Reese asked, or it might have been Will, I apologise. How do transfers work in the women's football, Andy? Would you get some cash if one of your players moved to the Super League?
Well, we've already lost one this year, and we didn't get nothing because she wasn't on a contract. So we work the same as semi-professional clubs work, that if somebody comes in for one of our players, they have to give us 7 days notice, which isn't great. That we lose them within 7 days, which is an absolute nightmare. If they were on an FA contract, the club would have to come up with a good enough deal for us to let her go, which is similar to what we'd have to do if she's on a contract. We could loan players the same as they can in the men's league, but we can do the same as what teams are doing to us. We put 7 days in for a player, we speak to them, we see if they want to come, and she can come for free, which is it can work in your favour, it can work against you. It can unsettle players very quickly because people can have their heads turned, and it can just play on their minds. It can give them negative performances, which isn't something that you want to happen. But like I said, if players want to progress their careers and a team from a higher league come in, I would never stand in anyone's way. I would advise them and tell them what I think would be the best thing to do. But yeah, we've lost a couple to bigger clubs who are in higher divisions, and hopefully it can't happen because the deadline's gone, which is good. But hopefully next year we can start to attract more players, so make our group bigger and stronger.
So there's no way that you can sign players, like even if it's on like 6 games or 6 month contracts or something, so you'd get some sort of financial benefit when the players move. We could have. Listen, Alicia Body signed for Leicester City. We could have had her on a contract. We would have had to pay her, and then we would have been in a better position. But it's if we paid her and she didn't move, you paying her. You're paying her for the full season, which it's not a risk for players of that caliber, but it's having the finances and having the backing to be able to do that, and it's a difficult one. It's a catch-22 situation, and it's an area that we're looking at for next season. It's an area that we're trying to improve on, but obviously we need backing as well. We need sponsors, we need help, we need people jumping on board and supporting what we're trying to push. Yeah, 100%. I know that feeling, mate. Gaz says, how long does Andy reckon Newcastle take to become a genuine Champions League club now they've got ridiculous amount of money?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you look at the size of the club. The club's
it's on par with, isn't it? It's ready.
It's on par with the Man Cities, on par with the Liverpools, on par with the Man Uniteds, because it's been there. It's been there and done it. You know what I mean? The problem they've got is players and recruitment. So they need a big window. They probably need 5 or 6 players, which will probably get them into the Europa League potentially. And then you need to then reinvent another window, probably the following year. So for me, I think realistically, within 3 seasons, I think they should be aiming for Champions League football, and that's every single season after that. I think they should be aiming for Europa League in probably the 2nd season. I think Eddie Howe's done a great job, but then you look at, is Eddie Howe the right person to move that football club forward? Is he going to be able to attract players? He's the best coach. He's an unbelievable football man. He's got really good staff with him. But
It's not going to attract the big.
Is he going to be able to attract big players? And that's what the chairman and the owners are going to have to probably decide. That is he the right person moving forward? You look at Pochettino, for example. Will he stay at PSG? Will he become available? Will they push him over? It's. Listen, I would hate to see somebody like Eddie lose a job because a club thinks that they're bigger than what they are. You know what I mean? Give him an opportunity to bring these players in. Give Eddie an opportunity to work his magic, because listen, the players that he's working with now and the job that he's done at Newcastle is absolutely outstanding.
100%, mate, 100%. And I think Pochettino would be a good fit for him. I don't think it looks like Ten Hag is going to get the United job. I don't think Pochettino is going to stay at PSG anyway. I don't think that was a good fit for him either way. So I think Newcastle actually would be a really good good fit for him going forward. Rob Boyle wants to know, have you had any coming-togethers with the opposing managers?
No, I wouldn't say so. There's always banter flying around. There's always conversations to be had. But there was one. I'm not going to name who he was. We had a little conversation as we were going into the changing room before half time, but an apology was made, not by me, after half time. And listen, I guess we got about people say things and in the heat of the moment, and I get it, and I've done it. And listen, it is what it is. You don't hold any grudges. You're there to win a football match, and if you didn't care and you didn't say things, then I think I'd be probably more worried.
Fair enough. Rye asked, can you give your thoughts on that second goal from yesterday, please?
It shouldn't have stood. I'm not gonna sit here and say any different. I've watched it again.
So for those of us who haven't seen it, what happened?
Ball went out for a throw-in, me. One of our girls was on the floor in agony. The referee didn't stop the game. He played on. They took a quick throw-in, and they scored straight away. And basically, a conversation was had. The goal was given, and the reasoning behind, because she was on her way up on her feet, but she was laying on the floor and she came off. So I was disappointed with that. It's fine margins for me. It's little moments in football matches which can determine big things. And that second goal just before half time really killed what we were trying to achieve. And listen, the referee didn't cost the result yesterday. The referee didn't stop us from winning the game. We probably did that ourselves, and our opponents made sure that they were good enough to win the game. However, for that goal, for me, it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have stood. And I think I wasn't the only person in that ground yesterday who thought the same.
Yeah. Cade says, are the Boro women's games only in Billingham, or will there be more closer to Boro so you can come along?
I'm not really allowed to say, but yes, there will be something happening next season. So watch your space. There's exciting things happening. We've got a meeting tomorrow, so I think there's a lot of things going on, and I think it'll be exciting for players, exciting for the club, exciting for girls in the area, which I think is the most important part.
You seem to have quite a good following. Whenever I see clips and stuff, there's always seems to be quite a lot of fans there.
We've got some really good people who follow. We've got a group of there's a group of 5 lads who come to all our away games as well. They're absolute diamonds of fellas. They're great. They support the girls. They have a bit of banter. They have a few drinks after the game with the girls, and then travel back up north. It's absolutely brilliant to see, and it's just so nice and refreshing to see that that people do want the best for certain people. I just wish everyone was like that and give everyone the backing.
Yeah, 100%. I think women's football, for me, and obviously I don't follow it as avidly as you did even before you were working within it. I sometimes feel like they've got a problem with the way they promote it. So it's got better in over the last few years, particularly. But sometimes I feel like they could do more to let people know that there's games on. Like, I couldn't tell you when the last time Cardiff women played and when they play, where they play. And I live in Cardiff, and do you know what I mean? I know they train on certain nights because they train at the same place where one of my boys trains. But apart from that, like, I feel like in Cardiff's situation, probably similar to Middlesbrough and other places, is just as fans would go and watch reserve team games, they would watch women's football games, you know, Cardiff women, Middlesbrough women, whoever it may be. But I feel like they don't always promote it enough, whether it's social media or local newspapers, whatever it may be. And look, we are getting more women's football on TV these days. But even so, as compared to men's game, is nothing, is it, really?
No, listen, I totally agree. I think the publicising could and probably should be better. But then also what goes hand in hand with that is and I've seen it firsthand, that things are publicised and some of the comments are just derogatory at worst. They're horrific, sexist. You know what I mean?
I bet you get all sorts, mate.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible, and it's disrespectful, and you know what I mean. So sometimes you take those to stop those comments. You take the whole post down. Then when you take the whole post down, it stops everyone else from being able to know what's going on. So it's you can't do right for doing wrong sometimes, and it's. But that's not just women's football. That's racism. That's other football. It's just
social
so
media in general, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so disrespectful and needs looking at. Women deserve the equal rights same as men. You know what I mean? You got to remember as well, like that. I'm talking about young girls. You know what I mean? I'm talking about. We've got 16-year-old girls playing in the first team. We've got 18-year-old girls, 17-year-old girls. It's important that they don't get turned away by an idiot saying something to them, but which you shouldn't do, you know, because we got to try and protect them. But why shouldn't they have social media? Why shouldn't they be able to celebrate what they're doing, why they're doing it, when they do it? It shouldn't have to be private, so that the world can see or can't see, because it's just
but
it can be bad.
Those girls that you've mentioned there, they're essentially they're kids, isn't it? Still, I know 18 is classed as an adult, but it's still so young. And I think football fans, not all football fans, of course, but football fans generally, we see it every weekend. There's comments and things that are said on social media that are like inappropriate, ranging from inappropriate to disgusting to illegal, and that's hard enough for, say, I don't know, pluck a player, Wayne Rooney to deal with, Andy Campbell to deal with. Hard enough for a grown adult who's been through, you know, all sorts of things in life, in work, in football in general, to deal with, let alone a 16, 18-year-old who is still kind of working out who they are, what they want to do, you know, getting to grips with themselves as much as they are as footballers. And I think it's incredibly, I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like you say, you want to put posts up to promote it, and then you get a few comments and it's like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, the one thing you could do, mate, when you're promoting the game, whether it's through the clubs, yourself or whoever, is you can turn comments off. So you put the post up, but then no one can comment on it. So at least you're getting the information out there to promote these games and these teams and stuff without, you know, having to deal with but then it shouldn't be that either, should it? You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can do right for doing wrong. Sometimes you don't do it because you think it's the right thing to do, and then you're not promoting, or you do it. And listen, you're trying to interact with people. You're trying to inspire other people. So you're trying to get these players and supporters close to the football clubs. And how do you do that when you're so far away?
Yeah, 100%. I got to be honest, mate. I would find it really difficult as a father myself and as a manager to sort of keep my composure if people from the sidelines or social media were saying stuff to 16-year-old girls and stuff like that. And I don't know, I'm not made for that role like you are, because I would say something because I think it's widely inappropriate.
And I do, because I just think it's not nice, because I've got I've got a daughter the same age, so it's difficult to not say anything. I think it's only right as well, because you're in charge of, especially in away games, you're in charge of those girls whilst they're in your care. So it's
100%.
got to give them the best opportunity to do it right, you know.
Reese says this isn't an attack on women's football, but he said every time I've seen a game, 95% of all the goals have come from hitting it just over the keeper. Do you think making the goals smaller would help improve the development of the game? So I guess
no. Listen, we've played against. We've got an excellent goal. We've got 2 excellent goalkeepers in our group. Our captain's our goalkeeper. And listen, the goals what we scored yesterday, none were over a head. There was some absolutely amazing finishes. Some great team goals, bottom corners, top corners, and you're talking about any goalkeeper. Goalkeepers ain't stopping those kind of shots, because when they hit with precision and power, then unfortunately it goes in, and it's just one of those things. And I do get people's point. I watched WSL games myself. I watched one a couple of weeks ago, and I seen a couple of goals which probably were aimed. But then you could say, is it a good finish because it's lofted over the goalkeeper? When it happens to a man, no one says he's too small. So no one says the same thing. So I get people's point, but no, I don't think it would even things out, and I think it would probably see less goals happening, and I don't think that's what you need. I think you need more goals. It wouldn't have saved us from getting beat yesterday, so it wouldn't. For me, I don't think that needs to happen.
Yeah, and I think Reece might have mentioned that a few weeks ago when we were talking about something. And I think the general gist of it was that women are naturally not as tall as men, meaning that, you know, maybe only slightly smaller goals, or like 3/4 goals or something, would it improve the quality? But I think the quality of women's football has improved massively. And I look at some of the girls training and the women training down at Cardiff some weeks, and like the quality compared to when my older boy used to train, and I would see him like 5 years ago, say, and the difference in quality, but the same age group now, is unreal. And like that's only in a few years. And of course, it depends on the talent available and all that sort of stuff. But I think generally, as the coaching's got better, the quality's got better, and there's more girls and women playing. So it takes time, doesn't it? It doesn't happen overnight. And like you mentioned the Champions League games. Some of the quality in that the other week was unreal. And like you had a full stadium in Barcelona. Barcelona haven't had full stadiums for the men team some weeks. So
I'm blown away, Si, on a daily basis in training. I'm blown away by the standard of the girls, how professional they are, the attitude, how good technically they are, how fit they are, how they look after themselves when they're with us, when they're not with us. It's just a pleasure to see, because I know where they want to go, and I hope they can get there with us. But if they can't get there with us, I'm sure they'll get there by other means.
Spot on, mate. Right, everyone, now you got about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to ask as many questions as you want to Andy or myself before we let Andy go for the evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you, mate. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, pleasure.
I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about just some various things. So what do you think of the Premier League at the moment, and how it's going, and certain teams, how it's developing generally?
I thought yesterday's game was an absolute showcase for Premier League football. I thought it was an absolute boxing match where 2 of the best teams in the world went toe to toe. I thought it was absolutely great. It doesn't happen like that always. There's been the standard of the Premier League is a little bit like the Championship for me. It's there's probably 3 leagues in one league, and they can't compete. It's financial, they can't compete. In the players, the quality, you can't compete. But just watching the Liverpool, the Man Cities, the Tottenhams, the West Hams, the Chelseas, the Arsenals, those guys are making it a fantastic season, because yes, the top 2 are going to win the league, one of them. Then you've got the top 4. Then you've got the teams underneath it, and then you've got your bottom 3. Everything's still to play for, and it's going to go right down to the wire. It's been probably the best Premier League season for me for a long time. I looked at Everton get beat by Burnley, then they go and beat Man United, then Burnley go and get beat by Norwich at the weekend yesterday. Arsenal getting beat at home when they want to make the top 6. It's just absolutely enthralling. It's great, but I look at it on the other coin, on the other side of the coin, that Arteta, for example, will he be able to keep his job if he doesn't get Arsenal in the Champions League into Europe? Because that's what they need.
That seems mad though, because they were bottom of the league for the first 3 months of the season or whatever.
And now people are talking about that. Frank Lampard, you know what I mean? Is he will he next year be a Championship manager again, but with a Premier League club? It's listen, that would be an absolute travesty. But the league tables don't lie. If you get relegated, you get relegated. It's a.
Do you think he was badly advised to take that Everton job?
I don't think he probably knew what was involved in it in terms of, and I think it was quite late in the day when he got there. Did he get the job on deadline day? And he signed a couple of players himself. He signed Donny van der Beek. He signed Dele Alli.
What's his called?
Dele Alli and Dele hasn't played since he's got there, and I find that a strange one. I think
you know what I mean. I think
he's trying to inspire him to want to be a footballer. And
I got to say, with Dele Alli, I thought if there was one person who might get a tune out of him again, I did think that it might be Frank Lampard, someone who he would have looked up to and played with for England and stuff. But look, Dele Alli, in my opinion, is the epitome of players getting too much, too young in terms of money, because like what age is he now? He's got to be probably late 20s, but he's done nothing for 3-4 years now, barely played, and what a talented footballer. Like when he broke into the England team, he looked like he was going to be the next Paul Gascoigne at one point, and now he's like someone just said he may as well retire.
Part of me feels sorry for them, but part of me thinks that does he need to play football because he's earning that much money? What's the desire now for a top Premier League footballer? Because when you're earning a ridiculous amount of money, then do you need to play football? What's your ambition? Is your ambition to win things? Is he going to win something? He's not going to win something sat on the bench for Tottenham. He's not going to win something playing for Everton at the minute. So where does he go? Newcastle. People talk about Newcastle as a club to be inspired to go to. Why would Newcastle want someone who can't get in the Everton team? I find that really disrespectful to a side like Newcastle, because yes, Newcastle might not have the names and might not have a Dele Alli in their squad, but whoever's playing instead of Dele Alli is doing a better job because he's wanting to improve, he's wanting to play, and they're getting a better tune out of him.
The other thing with it is realistically, if you play Premier League football and you're in that sort of higher wage bracket in the Premier League or top wage bracket, sort of once you're on about like 30 grand a week and up, say it may be even a bit more than that. You play Premier League football for a year, maybe 2, getting that sort of money plus sponsorships and all the other stuff they get with it. Like realistically, you're never going to have to work again if you're clever with your money.
Yeah. So
the motivation, unless you're truly motivated by trophies, and I think, by the way, there's a lot of footballers out there who say they're motivated by the success on the pitch who aren't, but there is obviously some, and I just think it's a problem. We talked so many times, mate, about the financial bubble in football is eventually is going to burst, but it's not. It keeps going and going and going, and players keep getting paid more and more and more, and I don't know. It's a weird one. There's a few players. It's not just him. He's just one of the higher profile ones.
This isn't an attack on an individual. This is the problem with paying people too much money that they don't really need or want to play anymore. You know what I mean? You've got. I look at Pogba. And this isn't an attack on Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba is going to leave Man United and probably earn more money at his next club. But he's more bothered about, before a big game, Man United against Everton, he's more bothered about kicking the ball at Rio Ferdinand during a pre-match warm-up than he is about concentrating on his own development and getting himself ready for a football game. And I find that disrespectful for the fans who are watching. you don't do it because it's on TV. I just think it just looks really bad. And you know what I mean? Why as a player would you want to put yourself in that position that you look like you don't care for your football club, because they're paying your wages, and you know what I mean. But these kind of players know that they're going to get a better deal elsewhere in a different country, more money, better weather. These kind of players they can't fall off really. They're not going to do anything wrong.
Is the only solution to it that like a wage cap? Because the problem is the Premier League clubs are picking up these young footballers now, particularly where these young footballers are clever. They got agents and stuff like that. If you're a good academy player now, like 18, instead of going from a championship club to a Premier League club, if you're clever, you go to the Bundesliga, play first team football for 2 or 3 seasons, and then sign for a Premier League club for 50 million or whatever, and get paid a shed load of money, much more than you would have if you'd gone straight to the Premier League club. And you actually have got 3 years of first team football under your belt, playing in the Champions League, etc. And a few players have done that over the last couple of years, and I think it makes loads of sense.
Well, for me, Si, should it be related to if you start the game, you get paid more money? That if you sub, you don't get paid as much money. If you're not in the squad, you don't get paid as much money again. So if you want to get paid top money, you've got to start the game. Performance-related pay, you've got to play. And so if you want to really, 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 it's appearance money, effectively. You know what I mean? That if you want to play and you want to be in your manager's plans, you've got to work hard all week. You've got to train to the best of your ability. You've got to impress your managers and coaches and your fellow players, and you've got to be in the best possible shape to go and play at the weekend. And if you don't, then you'll get a basic pay. And your basic pay might be whatever. I'm not saying that this is fair and it's not fair. I just think teams have 25-man squads. If you're not in the 25-man squad, you're getting paid to do nothing. You're not even playing any games. So I don't get how that's fair. Oh, that's right. You know, that it's not fair on the player. Never mind the club. It's not fair on anybody.
But my thing, I think, is more rather than I don't necessarily have a problem with the best players in the world being paid the best wages. I think I have more of an issue with players who've barely played a first team game signing ridiculous contracts where they are coming into training in whatever car. Like, sorry to use Dele Alli as an example, but he turned up to sign for Everton in some ridiculous car, and it was just like, mate, you haven't played football for like 2 years. You've literally done nothing. You're going to Everton to almost save your career, and you're more focused on, I don't know. It's just weird, and I agree with you in some ways, the performance and the appearance related wages, but the problem with that is football clubs will then, and it is a two-sided thing always, football clubs will use that to abuse that as well, to get out of paying people. Yeah, because if they play this week, they're going to trigger this clause or this clause. They do it already, but if it's even more clause based on goals, appearances, whatever, they will 100% tell their managers to not pick them.
But it opens a can of worms, because where do you stand when people get injured? Where do you stand when people get suspended? Because you're getting injured playing for your team, you're getting suspended playing for your team. So then we'll see people not getting not tackling, not playing the same way. Listen, there's no right or wrong answer. I just get it's really frustrating. But it's always the same names what got mentioned about they don't want to play. Gareth Bale's name gets mentioned all the time. Dele Alli's name gets mentioned all the time. Paul Pogba's name gets mentioned all the time. And I'm not saying these guys don't want to play, but why aren't they playing? That's the question. Why aren't they playing? And if they're not playing, why aren't they doing more to play regular, week in, week out, and not accepting not playing or coming out and doing more to play? That's you're an outside looking in. You know what I mean? If I was a Middlesbrough fan and it was happening to a Middlesbrough player, I'd start to ask those questions, because it's happening about my football club, because we can replace a player with another player potentially, you know. And I think, you know what I mean, Man United, for example, would be desperate to go and bring in another player in for the kind of money that certain players are getting paid. So, you know what I mean, you can't keep on bringing players in on silly money. You've got to replace players like for like on similar contracts. You can't. Clubs don't have that kind of finance to just keep on another player. We're working on 25-man squads in the Premier League, so it's a difficult, it's a strange animal.
It's crazy, mate. And like a load of people just said Phil Jones. Phil Jones is a
Phil Jones you've
multi-millionaire,
mentioned as well.
and like there was he played one game this year in the Premier League, and by the way, he played that game, was awesome. Everyone remembered that he can actually play football really well, and then hasn't played since. So it's like, why isn't he playing? Is he not playing because he hasn't got the motivation? Does the football club not want him? Like there's this massive disconnect a lot. Craig says, we also have Gareth Bale, who at times you have players who fall out with managers. So should the player then be penalised? Because it's difficult. You remember the old days when a side didn't put a performance in away, they paid for the fans' tickets and travel and stuff. If your wages are all performance and appearance related, and then you have a Zidane and Bale situation where, you know, one Bale basically got dropped because Zidane didn't like him. Is that fair then that player's not getting paid? There's so many angles to it, isn't
I
it?
see it, and I see it from your own point of view. Listen, that Dave Jones comes to Cardiff City and decides that he doesn't want me, so that means I don't get paid or don't get paid the wages that I was getting paid. It's such a tough question to answer, you know, and I think, you know, it's dog eat dog football, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get tougher and tougher every single season because you're going to get another influx of younger players. The standard of Premier League players dropping down to League Championship, League One, League Two, or further, is just phenomenal now. You know, I seen a list of players that Middlesbrough released this week or last week, and one of the players dropped down from the Championship, which is obviously the league that Middlesbrough are in, and he signed for Gateshead, which are in Conference North, which what we on League That's One, League Two.
7 tiers, isn't it? 6 tiers.
He probably dropped down. He dropped down 5 leagues, and that's, you know what I mean. That's a big jump for a player. Yes, it might just be for this season, and he might be stepping back up, but there's no guarantee that might happen. No. So you know what I mean. It's happening far too often for me that players are dropping down that many levels and standards for in certain players, but like the Premier League players they're protected a little bit. They're protected a little bit because they know that they're going to get another opportunity if it's in a different country, or if it's a little bit like Jack Wilshere. Jack hadn't played for years, and he goes and signs for a team in Denmark. He gets an opportunity, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, why doesn't that happen for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's been many examples of that, isn't there? Like there's like this bubble, isn't there, where the Premier League kind of the same managers get the same jobs. The player maybe with the managers is, I think that's starting to change, but like, you know, for many years it was the same managers would come in to just be like a merry-go-round, and then if they didn't get a Premier League job, they'd come into the Championship teams. And unfortunately, that's
it was always the same circle, Si. It was always the same circle. It was always,
and they'd always fail and kind of move on, and
and then they'll do the same thing to another football club. They'll get another opportunity, and it wasn't right. But if that's your football club, how do you feel? You feel a little bit let down because, you know what I mean. Owners, it's the same thing with an owner. You know that people are saying Mike Ashley ruined Newcastle United. Well, he didn't really ruin them. He stuck a business model into a football club. It wasn't everyone's cup of tea. But now he wants to do the same thing at Derby County. And if I was a Derby fan, I'll be a little bit reluctant because I want, if Derby are going to get out the mess they're in, they've got to spend some money because they need to get back where they want to be. If that's going down, they've got to go up. You know what I mean? Is money going to be available?
Him and Rooney working well together, I got to be honest.
No, I don't. No, neither do I. No.
But then Mike Ashley was linked with Cardiff briefly as well, so I'm quite happy for him to go to Derby. Right, where was that question gone? Oh, Donna, we did answer this question, but as is you, Donna, I'll put it to Andy again. Donna says, "Are you doing another season with Middlesbrough Ladies AC?"
Well, the plan. Listen, that decision is also out of my hands as well. That I hope so, but if the chairman decides that it's not going to happen, then it might not happen. But for my part, I can only answer from my end, and from my end that I'd like to think so. Yeah.
There we go. And Will says, on a similar note, glad to see Cameron Cox has made it back to league football. Yeah, that was such a strange situation.
It was. And I remember I spoke to Cameron a couple of times and advised him differently to what he chose, and I was disappointed that he went there, but I was really pleased that he got his opportunity to go back into Colchester, and he's managing to get some regular game time, because he was a Wales international at Cardiff City. To drop down the levels that he did, it was more of a shock than anything for me.
Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it? Couple of quick questions from me then, mate. Do you think Middlesbrough will make the playoffs?
Oh, you're asking my heart or my head?
Well, I'm just asking you if you think they'll do it.
Heart says yes. Head says no. And I'm honest with. I've always been honest on this show. I just think there's some teams. Huddersfield are drawing 0-0 at half time with Luton, which is a really bad result for Middlesbrough, and you probably need one of them to win. Nottingham Forest are the team which annoyed me the most, that they've absolutely blew us away, considering we beat them at Christmas, and they weren't anywhere near what we needed at the time. But no, I think Chris has done an amazing job. I think if Middlesbrough got promoted this year, would they be in a financial position to sustain and stay up? I am not sure. I said I don't do the finances, but I think for me, I think you got to be sustainable. And I've always said on the Championship show that Middlesbrough need to keep making progress. And for me, if Middlesbrough can just stay where they are, next season they can go get in the top two and go up automatically. And I think that's got to be the aim for me. That go up when you're ready. I think a lot of teams, and we've said it both sides ourselves, that a lot of teams go up when they're not ready, and they come back down, and it can be massively detrimental to their club. Never mind just a season; it can have a huge impact. Look at West Brom. West Brom are in a right mess because they've lost managers. They've tried different ways of doing it, and who knows where they're going to end up in 2-3 seasons' time. And I just hope that doesn't happen to a Middlesbrough, happen to a Cardiff, because Cardiff haven't had a great season this season. But look where they were 2 seasons ago. They were a VAR decision away from staying in the Premier League. That's how just awkward this is, and how much of a shame that if VAR was still in the Premier League when Cardiff played Chelsea, that Cardiff would have stayed up, because they would have
bizarre, isn't it?
If they would have beaten them, if not beaten them, they would have drew against them. So that would have been the difference between staying up. It's such a cutthroat industry.
Fine lines, mate. Fine lines. But then in January, Cardiff were down for me. Steve Morrison's worked miracles, because Cardiff they were like right down the bottom of the league. They had no money to spend. They had 2 or 3, 4 players who either weren't good enough or needed to be gone, and you couldn't see how he was going to be able to maneuver all those moving parts. They brought in Mark Hudson, they brought in Dan Pearce, they brought in the assistant manager. They got a really good backroom team, and then now they just did a bit of wheeling and dealing, dropped the players that they needed to drop, got rid of a couple, brought in some really good youngsters, and suddenly they were safe within 6 to 8 weeks, which was remarkable, mate, because I could only see them going down in January.
I totally agree, and I think it's important. And I think when we're talking about the Swansea game, or we're talking about other games, I think it's really important that Steve, the job he's done, which is a really good job, and straight away once you do the maths and you realise you ain't going down, that you start planning for next season, because next season becomes the importance once you're mathematically in that division. And his recruitment, his ethos, his planning for next season will be starting months ago, because he knew he was going to be in the division. He knew he wasn't going to get in the playoffs because there was too much of a gap to fill. And next season they'll hit the ground running, and they'll be in really good position because of how early he's probably been able to plan. And I'm sure the club will have things up their sleeve, which is great. But next season's a huge season for him and for Cardiff City.
Right, to finish off then, mate, I got one question from the group, and then I'm going to ask you a question. What was it like to meet Rye yesterday?
It was lovely. It was lovely. I only found out a couple of days ago that it was coming. Obviously, I know he lives a long way away in Plymouth. So to come from Plymouth to Middlesbrough to come watch my girls was great. Nice to see him. So yeah, really appreciated all the effort he did. So yeah, it was great.
And who do you think is going to go down in the Premier League, and who do you think is going to finish in the top 4?
I think Norwich are going to go, even though they won yesterday. I think Watford have gone, in my opinion. I don't see them scoring enough goals. And I think the trapdoors finally got to put Sean Dyche and Burnley out of it. They've got to go. They have to go this year.
Do you think Everton are going to scrape up?
I think so, and I think Man United give them a 3-1 at the weekend, which I didn't like. But that's another story. Top four, I think. I thought Liverpool would have won yesterday, and because they didn't, I think Man City will win the league. I think
there's only a point between them.
Yeah, I just think I just can't see them. I just can't see them losing. I just can't see any of them losing. In all honesty, I just think that there's too much. There's just too much quality in both teams and both squads to lose games. I just think there's just too much quality. I thought Chelsea had blown it with what was going on. I thought they were losing too many games. The Brentford game was but then what they did to Southampton at weekend. So I think they'll finish third. And I'm going to go Spurs because I think Arsenal as well. After what happened on Saturday against Brighton, it can't happen at this stage of the season. And Spurs have picked up some big points. Yes, they've got some hard games coming up. But yeah, I'm going to go Spurs. Spurs for 4, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City to win it.
Interesting. So you said about United giving Everton a 3-1. Here's my reckless speculation. United are down to 7th now. It's unlikely, I think, that they're going to get in the top 4.
Yeah.
Do you think they would rather finish 8th out of the Europa League places, in which case we might see a lot of youngsters being played for the rest of the season? Because ultimately, we see so many teams talking about what an inconvenience the Europa League is until the very latter stages. Would they rather finish? At the end of the day, does it really matter if you finish 7th or 8th? It's not good enough either way.
No, and if you finish, I think if you finish 6th as well, if you got to do the pre-qualifying, which starts your season even earlier, which they certainly don't want and they don't need. The players won't need it. I think you've got to remember as well. You've got the World Cup as well, so it's going to make the season a very strange season. It's going to make everything a little bit longer, a little bit spread out, and I think I agree with you. I think it's going to make it a bit of a mess. But I don't know. Will they be able to attract players if they don't get into Europe? Well, I know they're a big club, but money talks. I understand that as well, but they need a manager. They need the whole philosophy from the top to the bottom's got to be different. Got to be changed because you know what I mean. I think Sir Alex Ferguson ran that club from the boardroom all the way down to the pitch, and since he's left, the boardroom's just not been there. And I think they've understood that they've needed so many people in place, but they've just got the wrong people at the minute. And I hope they get it right because I want to see them challenging the Liverpools. You know what I mean? Everyone said that the Liverpool have still got to play Man United, and even Gary Neville said yesterday it's a given that Liverpool are going to win. And I agree with him, but I should never agree with him because Man United have got a great record at Anfield all the time, and that would always be a game where it would be a flip of a coin, 50-50, that Man United could easily go there and turn them over, but at the same time Liverpool could do something where now you can see a heavy
players
defeat
don't care.
for United.
Players don't care. And then lastly, who do you think, which 4 teams will make the playoffs in the Championship, and which team will finish second, and also who do you think get relegated?
Right, I'm going to go Fulham. Fulham are going to win it, obviously. I know they lost yesterday, but I just think there's too much gap in between the rest. I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to go Nottingham Forest. I'm going to go finish second. I just think they're on the crest of a wave at the minute, and I think there's just too much happening.
And they got Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. So that will leave Bournemouth in the playoffs, Huddersfield in the playoffs, Luton in the playoffs.
So difficult.
And I'm going to go Sheffield United because I think they've been like a little bit silent assassins. They haven't really been in and around it. So yeah, I think the teams that are in there now, apart from Forest, are going to get out of it, and that'll break my heart because obviously I want Middlesbrough to be in it, but I just think there's just too much happening, and going down out that league is the 3 order in it: Barnsley, Derby, and Peterborough. Because I just can't see any of them getting out of it, which is such a shame. It's a shame for Derby, but Barnsley as well. We spoke about Barnsley's side on the Championship show. We've given them absolutely so many plaudits, so many good comments, but when you lose the manager what they've lost and all the good things that they've worked on, and you replace the players and the manager with people who aren't as good, then you get bad performances, bad results. Yeah, you get what you deserve sometimes.
Reading have just hit a good run of form at the right time, because I think probably about 6 weeks ago it looked like Derby were going to get out of it, but Derby stuttered, and at that very time that Derby stuttered, Reading just picked up a few wins, and then it's game over then, isn't it?
I think them bringing Paul Lynch was a master plan. I don't think the manager deserved to lose his job. I thought he was doing okay, but Paul's come in and he steadied the ship. Paul's come in with a different mentality, probably a more defensive mentality, that you don't have to win all your games, you just have to stay in the games for a little bit longer. And I think it's important that they stick by him, give him what he needs, because Reading notoriously have been they've done well over the course of years. So, you know what I mean? I think over the last probably season they've underachieved, but they can't afford this to happen again, because next season the trapdoor is going to get bigger. There's going to be bigger teams in the Championship coming down from the Premier League, coming up from League One, and they don't want to get stuck into that mess.
Indeed, mate. So, Andy, I really, really appreciate your time, mate. It's been so good to,
My pleasure. Loved it.
to have you get back together, back on the show and stuff. Best of luck for the rest of the season. Last few games, hopefully you can pick up a couple of wins and nicely just have a nice little comfortable stay up. But it's been a pleasure, mate. And
I loved it.
The door is always open, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, listen, I've had a great time. Thanks for having me back on. Thanks for everybody for the questions. It's always best show around. Best place to showcase your views on football. It's just so laid back, just so natural and so nice to be able to just talk about football and just be able to say what you want.
100%, mate. And don't forget, Rhodri Giggs on football Thursday night, 7:30. Join us. And tomorrow night, we've got a new My Story with UFC star Corey McKenna. And for one last time, let's hear the intro music in full. Good night.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
It's in! Campbell comes off the bench to be a hero, a superhero. Breakthrough. It's taken a while. It's been worth the wait.
We are the ones who mark a new beginning. We are the ones of the sport.